Peace, y'all. It is I, the Emma, Energy Master Allah, and you are watching the Leopard in the Mirror, Canticle of the Mutant Guardian lecture series. If you don't have that book, make sure you grab it on Amazon. Make sure you grab that physical. Pages. The real deal. Okay, and we are on episode 26. Still in book 3, The Return of Understanding, and this is Canto 24. Unknown, the womb of the word. Okay. As always, I record these live on Facebook and then I post them on YouTube. So if you're not already subscribed, make sure that you do that. If you are watching on YouTube, go ahead, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and drop me a comment. All right. So let's get to it. So we're going to come over here. I'll read through the canto. And when we're done, we'll talk about it. All right. Here we go. Canto 24. Unknown. The womb of the word. In the hollow between thoughts, she waits. Not silence, pressure. Not absence, potential. Her name is X, the unpronounced syllable, the mark left by the mother when she hid the blueprint beneath our skin. They called her unknown because they feared the knowledge that fills. They drew lines across her face and called them reason. They broke her bones and called them relics. Yet the bones remembered. Iron veins singing in the mud, ancient marrow mapping the moons. When Da Vinci split the body, he did not see the leopard's spots, each one an eye, each one a number counting the heartbeat of creation. The old Renaissance lit the sun, but forgot the light that breathes from blood. Here she returns, the high priestess crowned with meteoric iron, her womb the cradle of magnetism, her tongue the line that folds light into language. She is not after reason. She contains it. Her science is spiral, her formula of fertility, her theorems bleed. O children of Allah, you are the calculus of her dreaming. Your DNA is a hymn written in curves. Every coil remembers a tide. Every tide whispers her name. The priests of old weighed souls in scales of logic, but she, the leopard, measures by rhythm. She counts in pulses, divines with bones, draws the cross not to crucify, but to multiply. Behold the X, two mirrors crossing, the sun meeting its reflection in the moon. Here the magician kneels before the midwife. Here the philosopher's stone melts into milk. The age of reason is over. The age of resonance begins. Not enlightenment, enwombment. Not I think, but I am felt. For when the unknown unfolds her paw, we see that every star is a fingerprint, and every human face is the equation of her infinite smile. All right. Let's take it to the top and talk about it, shall we? All right, Canto 24, unknown. So unknown, of course, is the 24th letter of the supreme alphabet, which is X. Unknown is the true identity of man, woman, and child. We done lost the identity of who we are, who God is. All of that mostly because they say people don't want to be taught by us, but I mean, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. So I mean, ain't no use in trying to force people to learn it. You know it when you know it, and if you get thirsty enough, you'll come to the watering hole. You'll get thirsty enough to come get this water. In the hollow between thoughts, she waits. Not silence, pressure, not absence, potential. So the unknown. So that which you know that you don't know, a known unknown, you can seek. You can find answers for it. If you know you don't know something, if I know I don't know how to fly a plane, I know I can look it up and go to school and all of that stuff for it before I try to fly a plane. Well, what about those things you don't know because it's in a blind spot? Those things you couldn't have planned for because you have no frame of reference for it. That is where the potential lies. So this is why we're talking about understanding the potential field. And that is very important in order to avoid slipping into a spooky way of thinking. Like when it comes to the 5%, they avoid certain concepts altogether when teaching the babies, because you don't want kids getting concepts conflated and mixed up and so on and so forth. And then when you get into more detail and there's more moving parts and everything else, it's easy for them to latch on to a misunderstanding, and that form the entire universe, And so this is not for the kids. This this version I'm teaching you right now is to elevate your understanding as somebody with knowledge of self in order to reach into the deeper layers to be able to see that Allah is seen and heard everywhere. It's not something that's metaphorical. It's not something that is a religious claim that you have to impose on folks. The point is, if you dig deep enough, you will observe the nature of the essence such that you don't have to return to it in depth to be able to articulate it in a way that has a person have an equal understanding. And so if you aren't able to forge equal understanding with another, it's usually because you don't fully understand it. You probably know it well enough to get by, or you know it well enough to, be able to pass if you get bombed or confronted by another guy. But then true understanding is one that becomes equal, because regardless of the route that anybody takes to get there, the truth is the truth. It doesn't care what route you use to get there. And so that opens up your own understanding when it comes to people. Because now, as opposed to you being on the attack and then, like, oh, your way of doing things is wrong, look at the fruits. If they're getting a result, there's something about their path that's letting them tap into that thing. And you just need to look at, okay, what's missing from my understanding or their understanding? How can I enhance that thing? So ain't nobody out here on no warpath trying to destroy Christianity or Islam or nothing crazy like that or whatever. This is something that gives people a shared framework, a shared language, a shared lexicon or whatever, so they can operate smoothly. But sometimes if that operating system was presented to them in a way where there's parts missing, then and they're only measuring good within their own framework, what happens is it makes it extremely difficult for us to share a planet. Because what's good in one person's framework might not be compatible with another person's framework. You brought all these iPhone chargers over here and don't nobody use nothing but Android. So you a saint at your own crib, but you a butthole when you come over here. So it's like, why would you bring iPhone cords over somebody's house if you did the knowledge to know that they had Androids? The only reason, if you consider yourself a good person and you still did that, it's usually because you didn't even know to do the knowledge. And so this is the wake up call right here on how the unknown actually works. It doesn't mean nothing. And it doesn't mean no spookism. It just means acknowledging that there is a realm of unknown unknowns that require a bit of creativity in order to be able to bring certain potentials, not just into manifestation, but even being aware in the first place so that you can throw a lasso around it, join it, and pull it into manifestation. Her name is X, the unpronounced syllable, the mark left by the mother when she hid the blueprint beneath our skin. The unpronounceable syllable, so that is unmanifested sound. In Hindu thought, that's called shabda on one level. Before that shabda is moved into audible sound and speech, and so on and so forth. And from a physics standpoint, that is phonon. So that is lattice vibration. It is paths that heat take to dissipate, and it becomes a group excitation, like a wave throughout the body. And then this is the birth of what we end up recognizing as sound, as it relates to really light converting into sound, because our melanin converts UV light, and then steps that down into infrared, where it becomes heat. And so as a result, it is effectively transforming light into sound, just not audible sound yet. And so that's the gift the mother gave to us. That's what the matrix of this planet. Remember, geometry means measure of Earth. And so if you look at a globe or a map, it's a grid system. Like they measure the Earth using longitude and latitude, which creates a grid. That's a matrix. Right? It don't mean that you in some digital reality that was built by robots or some simulation in that, type of situation. But you are in a place that is sexy enough to have you fooled into thinking that you are not one with the source of divinity that gave rise to you, or whatever. If you are interpreting that as separation, that is because you are identifying with the material aspect of yourself. You utilize the material in order to be able to taste yourself. And I don't mean that like literally being nasty, doing something with your tongue, but when you understand the concept of taste on the metaphysical standpoint, it is the point at which you are able to interfere with yourself. Interference pattern. That means the whatever you're putting out is able to also affect you. And so we do that in one easy to understand form when you're talking. Right now, I'm talking out loud, and I'm able to hear myself instead of it being like sound that's trapped inside of my body, like kind of like if you cover your ears and you can kind of hear that muffled version of your voice when your ears are covered and you hear it inside your body. I'm talking about when you speak out loud, and just like how somebody else uses their ears to hear you, you're hearing your own voice. So you're creating a feedback loop where you are both the source of the sound and the recipient of the sound. And so you know what to say next. And so that's basically in some ways what an LLM, so an AI, that's what they're doing. They're basically seeing what you say and then giving you the yes and, like what's the period on the end of that sentence, and that's what you're constantly doing. And so you have like this active memory. You got some things that get stored in long-term memory if there's significance assigned to it by your perception. But memory is a reconstruction process where you don't record the thing, you record coordinates representing the thing, and then whenever you're ready to access that memory, the mechanism of your mind is able to recall those reminders, those address points, and be able to reconstruct it in your mind or whatever. So if you want to visualize something you saw earlier or whatever, that's essentially what it's doing. It's just doing it really, really fast for most people. Unless you got something wrong with you. Let's see. They called her unknown because they feared the knowledge that feels. They drew lines across her face and called them reason. They broke her bones and called them relics. Yet the bones remembered. Iron veins singing in the mud, ancient marrow mapping the moons. They talking about what we doing to the earth, man. Like you partitioning it off. You draw political lines to divide the land up and whatever else. You dig and you're fracking her to death. Taking all the resources. You can never take all the resources. The earth is super abundant, but at the same time, she get tired of your mess after a while. She matter of fact, she so routinely gets tired of our mess that she reacts in cycles. She save all her anger for the end of the month so she can unleash it all on you at one time. But the earth cycles are, some are shorter than others, but we talk about large scale. We talking about like 25,000 years and stuff like that. Stuff you have to have been around quite some time and had an unbroken chain of tradition in order to kind of preserve. So when it comes back around, be like, oh, that's why we have to do that thing every week. So it's something that happened thousands and thousands of years ago, and they're trying to make sure that some way, shape, or form, when it happens again, and it inevitably happens again, we're ready for it. Okay. Yeah, that's what that is. So drawing those political lines, tearing up the landscape. When Da Vinci split the body, he did not see the leopard spots. Each one an eye, each one a number counting the heartbeat of creation. The old Renaissance lit the sun, but forgot the light that breathes from blood. So I just read an interesting breakdown by Deepak Chopra that describes, all right, so the ultimate reality is referred to as the Brahman in Hindu thought. And the individual soul is referred to as Atman. And so they have the saying that Atman is Brahman. So it is the ultimate reality, but the problem is when Atman steps into a physical body, we succumb to the illusion of identifying with that physicality as ourselves rather than that ultimate reality of pure consciousness. And so our life force, which is referred to as Jiva, can be thought of as the pure consciousness of the ultimate reality embodied as a sun. So a unmanifest sun, and your life force is like the waves on the surface of a pool of existence that serves as the medium within which that sunlight is reflected. So you get this idea of you experiencing the reflection here and forgetting that you're not the water, you're the sun that's up there reflecting in this water. So I'm over here instead of over there. So I got this weird way of dissociating with it and instead associating myself with this. And there's so in this idea of Da Vinci not seeing the leopard spot. So this is a reference to Jeremiah 13:23, where you get the comparison between the leopard spots and the Cushi skin. Cushi is the Ethiopian, and back then Ethiopian meant any of your sun-kissed black behinds. So this is a melanin story. I know people running into the ground and just want to give melanin superpowers, but as far as all things cosmic and physics and everything goes, I mean, It's pretty amazing all on its own. It's doing all the things you're describing. It's just that you poeticize them and steep them so far in metaphor that you don't realize when it's talking about you. So this is why most people don't know the identity of God. They're looking everywhere but where that's happening at. And the old Renaissance, the Renaissance period, they literally, you know, as far as the masculine and the sun and all of that, they totally put that at the forefront. And then put, feelings, whatever else, all the things that we learn from the mother. The mother's the first teacher. The mother is Adi Yogi. She's the first teacher for the child. And so they you go through programming them to follow this path and do this and that instead of what, they learn directly from the mother. And so that light that breathes from blood is that funnel, so that charge, so that it says, remember, most light, or well over 99.99% of it, is invisible light. It's not the stuff you see. So that's the unknown. And so through feeling, tasting, if you will, that is how we detect those potentials, even though we can't see them. So you got inverted. When you were in the womb, you were completely dependent on somebody who you can't even see. And now you have to take care of the inside of you that you can't see. And that you have to use special means in order to be able to map and understand. And so sound is how you do that. Sound is how you map the unknown. Language is how we map the unknown, hence the purpose of mathematics in the first place. Here she returns, the high priestess, crowned with meteoric iron, her womb the cradle of magnetism, her tone the line that folds light into language. She is not after reason, she contains it. Her science is spiral, her formula of fertility, her theorems bleed. She doesn't need to be logical or reasonable because her design was created with logic and reason. You see what I'm saying? It was created by the hands of perfection. And the high priestess is the subconscious. So you can throw ideas, you can throw items into that water, but you can't change the water. You can change the flow of it, but water's gonna be water regardless. The mind is what the mind is. You just gotta understand how that substance works. The high priest is crowned with meteoric iron, her womb the cradle of magnetism. So the iron that is at the center of the earth, in a lot of ways, is more reminiscent of our surface sign. So meteoric iron is actually anti-magnetic. So Earth's iron, which is ferromagnetic, has that attraction, creates that field. But then the anti-magnetism associated with meteoric iron allows for penetration. And so you get a metaphor in that to some degree with things from the heavens penetrating the earth. Same concept with the sperm and the egg is you think of one of them as being magnetic, one of them being anti-magnetic so they can pass through it. And then what ends up happening is that the sperm and egg combine and it creates a child who is covered in paramagnetic stuff, meaning that it, the field of it aligns in the direction of an external, stronger magnetic field, in our case, the sun. So the field lines of our melanin point according to the direction of the sun. Almost like little microscopic leaves, if you think about it. You know how plants, their leaves and flowers and stuff can turn in the direction of the sun throughout the day a little bit, we'll imagine that every cell of melanin on the surface of your skin does something similar, and it reaches out with this magnetic fields like they are leaves. Her womb, the cradle of magnetism, the center of the earth, is what projects the magnetic field around the earth. Her tongue, the line that folds light into language. That's what you're doing. You see something, goes to the tongue, and then it flips that baby into words. So we're doing light to sound conversions right as we speak. If I'm reading out loud, I am doing a light to sound conversion in real time. So our mechanism for reading and speaking is very, very, very much aligned with the same process that your melanin does physically with the sun. It is in dialogue. Okay. O children of Allah, you are the calculus of her dreaming. Your DNA is a hymn written in curves. Every coil remembers a tide. Every tide whispers her name. You are a geometric record. So all of the Akashic records, everything else is stored in the form of geometry. You can read anything if you recognize the geometric motifs, and you can also understand the relationships between the mathematics that gets extracted from there. So the entire universe is how it writes. So if you can read the language of geometry, and you can understand how that converts into, numbers, and how numbers can be applied to frequencies, and how frequencies apply to sounds, and so on and so forth. It's basically taking what you take for granted in the process that you use for, doing normal stuff like speaking, and being able to slow that down, break it down to the point that you gain a new power over that faculty as a result of having refined your understanding. Okay? The priest of old weighed souls in scales of logic, but she, the leopard, measures by rhythm. She counts in pulses, divines with bones, draws the cross not to crucify, but to multiply. So that's a play on the X shape of the multiplication sign. Priest of old weighed souls and scales of logic. So they logically looking at your knowledge of self. How aware are you? Doing it in a heady way. Doing rituals, building altars, all of that. But she, I said the leopard, so we're bringing it back to the personifying the cat. A melanated leopard is a panther. So this is some biased type imagery here, measured by rhythm. So timings, rhythms, the way the earth reacts, the way it moves, the seismic activity. That's what communicates what's going on inside of the planet. That's how she talk. That's how she let you know she ain't happy. She counts in pulses, divines with bones. Resonance. That's resonance. Piezoelectricity is what it's talking about here. Creating a current from mechanical stress, man. Draws the cross not to crucify, but to multiply. The cross creates a waveguide that points towards center. So it multiplies, amplifies the power output in a sense. Essentially by building pressure, by pushing from the four directions toward a center point. It is pressure that allows that baby to come through. It is electrical pressure that allows that energy to move through them wires. Potential. Behold the X, two mirrors crossing, the sun meeting its reflection in the moon. Here, the magician kneels before the midwife. Here, the philosopher's stone melts into milk. So there's all kinds of mythologies throughout the Proto-Indo-European world, which is a kind of jacked up way to, you know, try to bypass, you know, what was going on with the basal Eurasians, and before that, the Peninsula folks, and before that, the North African folks, and so the chain keeps going because it's a continuous chain of, you know, ideas, but then they just get encoded slightly different once you move from one place to another. But that's to say, you know, you got some Hathor as the cosmic maiden, midwife, or whatever. The cow, sacred cow, all that good stuff. That don't mean you go out here worshiping a cow, making the golden bulls and crazy stuff like that. Because some of y'all, your minds leap there. You should be ashamed of your understanding, such that it causes misunderstandings all the time. All right. Sun meeting its reflection in the moon. That is clear and obvious. The magician it's a reference to card number 1, the guy who connects heaven to earth with his knowledge. He knows the correspondences. He knows this relates to this. This symbol in the heaven is represented in this way on earth so that I actually understand what's being said there, and I'm not making assumptions or memorizing what somebody else said. The age of reason is over. The age of resonance begins. Not enlightenment and wombment. Not I think, but I am felt. But when the unknown unfolds her paw, we see that every star is a fingerprint, and every human face is the equation of her infinite smile. So that doesn't mean be unreasonable, but the time for the era to be dictated by, without also, like, all right, so we put a lot of emphasis on getting people to use their heads, use their brain, do some thinking. But we get highly opinionated and we share our thoughts as if people are supposed to automatically care, instead of making sure that our knowledge is understood. And then that's where it becomes a problem. You just want them to hear what you think, but you ain't even paying attention to whether they really feeling you. Yeah, I know you don't want to be stopped or controlled by somebody else's opinion, but the true power comes in being able to make a connection, and you can't do that without doing what I'm saying. For when the unknown unfolds her paw, we see that every star is a fingerprint, and every human face is the equation of her infinite smile. So we got a shared field because we grew from like constraints with regards to body geometry. Like, we can look pretty different, but you ain't just gonna be walking around and just have everybody with a randomly selected number of arms. You ain't gonna have everybody walking around with a randomly selected number of eyes, lips, and knees, and all that good stuff. We have a range within which we vary, and having some stable foundation as to, you know, what we can reliably, you know, identify as being human traits. You know, once you realize that, you kind of know both, you know, the distance between both ends, if you will. You know how much wiggle room that you have before things get all crazy and haywire and people don't recognize each other, and people start not even recognizing each other as human. We all know how that turns out and whatnot. But on that note, again, if you haven't gotten it already, make sure you grab that Leopard in the Mirror, Canticle of the Mutant Guardian. It is on Amazon. You can look me up. grab that book, and I'll see you in the next one. We'll be talking about hold on, we did. Hold on, unknown. Oh yeah, we're going to why next. So you get the unknown, and now we get to ask questions. Why? Why does it do me that way? I don't know. But I'll see you next time, y'all. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe. Peace out.